I'm going to talk to you about the technologies that I've helped create in response to things I've learned in my years of teaching. And to begin this conversation, first of all, I'm going to show a few slides just to give some background for the problems we're trying to solve here. Let me share the screen. This should do it. All right. So the tools that this is not my first time around the block. I created a system called the Weather Underground, which may be on your phone, for how to get weather information. That originally was for was a teaching app that went crazy. Then another system called Lecture Tools that was used to engage students in large lecture settings and get more interaction. But the thing I'm going to show you today is an evolution of those systems into something new that responds to what I perceive as the needs from some students. And the challenges we have is that your faculty, you maybe, or your faculty, are nervous about generative AI. It's this new system. It looks like a lot of work. And there isn't necessarily sufficient support yet on your journey to try to understand how you might use it in the classroom. I also know as an instructor myself that we have plenty to do already, and the idea of adding new technologies in the classroom can be daunting. So are there ways that we can do this in a very fruitful way that don't necessarily require the instructor to do a lot of work? I'm out to protect the instructor here. Likewise, students more and more have jobs. Some large percentage of students, regardless of what institution you're at, are working, and sometimes working multiple jobs. They want to be successful, but they have limited time to study. They need support, but they're not always going to be available.
I'm giving you my underwear.
I don't know what to do with that sentence. So I will go on here to, they need support. And sometimes you're not available or your instructor is not available when you are. So these are the challenges we're trying to deal with the system we're creating here. The traditional method, the model we probably mostly use, is in fact that we have sessions, lectures, perhaps we have class sessions where we have discussions, we present material, we engage with the students. We have content that we put into the whatever LMS you have. Canvas, D2L, Blackboard, etc. You put content in there for the students to have supplementary material. My complaint was that I did a lot of that, but the students never really seemed to make a connection between what I was preparing, speaking about in class, and the extra content I put into the LMS. They have a textbook, and we have maybe external tools and such that we also make available as part of the class. Now, the student, on the other hand, is able to access all those things through the LMS and whatever lecture capture system they have on campus, textbook. And of course, they go to class, they can see the instructor and ask questions in class. But the reality is that not all, I would say, in fact, a minority of students are actually willing to raise their hand and ask a question, particularly in larger lecture settings or online for that matter. And so these students then only go to this content that's made available to them indirectly. So what LearningClues has done is we ingest the material coming from all these sources. We ingest the content coming from the lecture videos, what was talked about in class. We ingest the contents of your LMS with your permission, of course, but we would get any PDFs, links that you have in there, other material that you've made available to your students. Important here is that you as the instructor or your instructors have total control then over the generative AI that this is going to provide. Because it's only what the instructor makes available that is made available in our system. Nothing else from outside the internet. Textbook here, I'll put an asterisk on that. If you have open education textbooks like OpenStax, we have access to those textbooks easily. If you have a commercial textbook, we can talk. There's a possibility we can make that available as well with the certain publishers. And there might be other tools. The point is we have a team that has figured out how to ingest the content pretty much from whatever it is you are making available to your students. Inside our system, then, the student can interact. Well, first of all, by the way, the instructor doesn't have to do anything. All this is set up, it's automated. You go and teach your class, and after class, an hour or so after class, we have ingested what you talked about. We have indexed it for generative AI. Likewise, any content you put in your LMS, all this content is being ingested in a continuous manner. So you don't have to do anything except agree to use the system. The student has then access to that. The content the student's going to get back out of the system is constrained only to that material that you have made available as the instructor. So you have total control over this generative AI. The students can always go out and go to Google or go to ChatGPT and get other information, but this is meant to be a place where you know that the content the students are getting back would reflect the material that you have chosen for the course. And this helps make students' study time more efficient. I'm going to show you how in a moment. And this is one of the keys here again. These students have time challenges and they want to be able to study efficiently. This system would let them find material they need when they need it. One piece that they have access to is called Study Clues, which I will be demonstrating live in a second here. In Study Clues, a student can ask a question about class, and you'll get a response back. And as you'll see, these responses coming back reflect what you have talked about in class, and actually has citations linking you to the content spot. And it'll take you to that moment in lecture or that spot in the PDF or wherever that's relevant to the question you've asked. The second part, and maybe I would argue the more interesting and exciting part, is adaptive learning. This is a space where not only are we ingesting what you've talked about, we are at the same time creating questions based on the content you discussed in class. And that those questions are made available to you as the instructor, but they're also, with your permission, sent to the students and can be used to self-assess your understanding of the course content. So let's go live for a second. I'm going to stop this sharing. And before I go on here, are there questions so far? That's the spirit. Let's see, share, and I'm going to share this one now. It's the wrong one, sorry. Let me share the right screen, which I think is, oh, that's PowerPoint. That's why. Okay, here we go. So here we are live. This is in the Canvas environment, LMS. And our system is an LTI compliance, so any LMS is LTI compliant, can include it. The student, I'm the instructor, so I click on that. And the first thing as the instructor is going to come up as an instructor dashboard. And I won't go through that right now, but basically it allows me to see what content has been ingested in the system. I can schedule downtimes if I don't want the system on during exams, for example. And I can see questions that students are asking, and I can see questions that the system is generating, and edit those questions if I want to. I'm going to go live first here to what we call study clues. And study clues is a place where you can ask any question. This is a course I taught and called Extreme Weather and Climate Change. Now, if you had any questions right now you wanted to ask about extreme weather and climate change, how will climate change affect lake effect storms? I live on the edge of Lake Michigan here, and this is of some value to me. Now it's looking through all the videos, all the lectures I've talked about, and it's looking through all the documents that I've made available. And you can see it comes back with a response, and each part of the response shows this part of the response is based on citation 1, and this part is based on citation 2. So the student now can go to, let's go to citation 2 first here, and it opens up a video, and it's going to take me to that spot in class where I was discussing that particular issue about lake effect storms and climate change. So you can see how a student then can very quickly get to the information they want. And likewise, up here, the first citation takes me to a spot in this case, my textbook, and it takes me to the page in my textbook where that was being discussed. So this makes it student study time more efficient because they don't have to look through the entire chapter. They don't have to look through the entire video from class. They can go right to find parts that they want. Also, sometimes students even don't know what question to ask. Well, here they can see questions other students are asking, and then they can go and check if another student has asked it. You may well want to do that yourself. And it comes back with a, oops, sorry, you're wrong here. Let's try it again. It comes back with a response, even with equations in it, which help you understand the answer. And again, citations. That's part 1. This is the study clues part. It helps the students be more efficient because it gets them the information they need relevant to the questions they have. Also, for the students who are shy, who don't ask questions, but they have questions, they just can't get to your office hours, it becomes a model for how they can get information 24/7 that you should find comfortable because it's only reflecting what you taught in class. Part 2, adaptive learning. Students, number one thing that students have always asked me for are past exams. Give me some past exams so I can use it to test my own, self-assess my understanding. Our system generates questions. I could have shown you back when we were looking at the instructor dashboard, it's generating on the order of 30 to 50 questions per class session. And these questions are all stored in our system. So a student comes in and they want to understand and test themselves in particular concepts. They can go into the system here and say, oh, I would like to learn about geostrophic winds and forces controlling surface wind shore. And takes to say, I want 10 questions. I don't need a timer. Submit the questions. It gives us a response of, here are questions you should be able to answer based on what was talked about in class. And I'm not going to try to answer this, go through and read these and answer them. I'm just going to pick some answers here somewhat randomly. For each question, by the way, we also generate some hints for the student about how to choose the answer to help them along. They try to answer their questions here. Another part I should have mentioned up front is that at the same time as the instructor, you can upload your learning objectives for the course. And we then, as we generate the questions, use generative AI to match the questions to your learning objectives. So that when you are done here, the student's done and they have answered the questions, we keep track of the student's responses all through the course. And it's going to come back and report to the student, first of all, what questions they got right and wrong. And oh, Carol, good, I got one right. This one I got wrong, but it gives an explanation here for each question. If I want to go see, then it shows me by learning objective in the course, my proficiency. This is a measure of what's the percent proficiency of per learning objective. So more or less it says if like frontal boundaries, right now I have a 53% chance of getting a question right on the exam for that category. I have a really low for radiative forcing here. So if I have limited time to study, it tells me I darn well better go study radiative forcing. It's going to help the student focus their study, or limited time to study, on those topics where they probably need to spend most of their time. So it's this combination of creating questions based on what you're talking about in class, mapping it to the learning objectives of the course, and being able to report back to the student to help them identify their weaknesses. At the same time, the instructor doesn't see what each student is getting in terms of proficiency. We don't want to bias the instructor, but they do see the average of the students. So which of the topics are the students more proficient, which topics are least proficient? Again, any questions on this so far? All right, I'm going to pop back out here and go back for a moment to some slides just to complete the idea. Here we are. And share this. Another important feature of this system is that, yes, it's going to answer questions for the course you're in, but we've designed the system to be multi-course. That means that I'm in a course, like engineering course here in semester 3, and I ask a question into the system. Well, we kept track of all the other courses you've been in or are concurrently in, and we're keeping track of your proficiencies throughout. So we know where your weaknesses are. And when you're in engineering course in semester 3 and you ask a question, probably the answer is going to come from engineering 1 course, but it's possible that maybe there's something in there about statistics that you had last semester. It will go back into that course and pull up information from that course, or maybe a Math 1 course, even the first semester. The idea is we have a student model where we follow the student through their semesters at the institution. And as we do that, then when students ask questions, we can go back to and look in all the courses that they've been in and help remind them of some of this material we use. We use a process called spaced repetition, kind of like so maybe you have used a Duolingo to try to learn a language. I'm trying to learn Dutch myself right now. I have a daughter in the Netherlands, and it's a fine system for asking you a question, and then after maybe a few days, it asks you the question again to see if it's stuck. Likewise, our system does that. So we ask questions, and those questions then you answer the question. We'll probably follow up with that, depending if you got it right or wrong. We'll follow up with that question again later. The idea is we're going to follow you and keep asking questions to see how you're doing, if you're progressing, and we can use material from all the courses you've been in. Which leads me lastly to the concept here of spaced repetition. We have coming out a phone app as well. And then this phone app, if you're students in a course at your institution, they get access to this phone app. And in the phone app, they would be sent questions after, we're designing it so they can get the questions after each class. So after class, they get a list of questions. And these are questions you should be able to answer based on today's class. The concept here is we want more continuous reflection. Most students just wait until right before the exam to cram, when we know that's not the best model. But this way, they're going to get a couple of questions each day that try to answer that, just to keep them up to speed, make sure that they understand what's been talked about that day. And they answer these questions, and as they do, they get an explanation for the questions. And like you saw with the study clues, they're going to have citations in there which will take them to the spot in the video or the documents in the LMS which are relevant to the question. And that would open up then either the video from class or the specific pages in the LMS, and then go on to the next question. So it's a simple system meant to engage the students more in the class. Not big demand, just here's a couple questions to answer each day, again, like Duolingo, that allows them to keep up to speed and self-assess, basically, which topics do they understand it, or are they still puzzled. We don't discourage students that can go back and really talk to your instructor, talk to your teaching assistant, but this gives a supplemental method for them to conduct inquiry about class content and to do self-assessment on their learning. And it does it fairly continuously throughout the course. So that's a really fast overview of what I've professoring with me is about, is how do we engage students? I as the instructor couldn't be there all the time. Sometimes I didn't want to be there. To be blunt, this system also, it will ingest your syllabus. And so a lot of those really annoying questions you get, like, when is the second exam? Which you put in the syllabus, but they didn't bother to read it, apparently. Now it can be answered by the system, so the students can get that sort of logistical content answered, as well as the course content, as long as you have described it in your LMS. Summary. I should have said this at the beginning. This has all been developed by people who teach courses. Between my co-founder, Kevin Collins Thompson, and myself, I think we have almost 70 years of teaching experience, and we're both computer programmers. Adaptive learning. This is adaptive learning integrated with generative AI is a powerful tool. It also allows you to map course curriculum. Now, either the instructor has told us, here are my learning objectives for the course. If they don't, our system actually generates them on the fly based on what you say in class. So you as the institution can get some idea of what content is being offered in each of the courses using this system, and map that together to see how it's mapped to your program objectives. For students, they need help. I mean, they have time constraints. They want to be successful. This gives them personalized support. The questions they get depend on how they've answered questions in the past. This personalized adaptive learning is going to be very focused. We generate the questions based on 3 levels of Bloom's taxonomy, and we're able to offer the questions to students. It remembers what courses you've been in. So again, you're taking a course, I teach climate change, you're taking a course in climate change. Well, maybe there's a course in political science that you took that has some relevance to the content in the course. It would remember that and bring it to bear based on your questions. For the instructor, you have total control over generative AI. The students are only going to get what you have taught, nothing else. And you get some feedback on students' progress about how they're doing, how they are, how proficient they are in each of the learning objectives in your course. And that gives you some more information about, you get to see what questions are being generated based on what you said. You get to see what material, what questions we're generating. I'm sorry, what questions the students are generating. So you have some idea where there might be some challenges by the students. And it gives you a lot more, you know, a lot more about your class with this kind of system. I'm going to stop right there and let's open it up for some discussion. I want to hear from you about, you know, the challenges you see with generative AI in your teaching or leadership role.